Now, first of all, thanks for coming back. Second of all, I got to tell you, what you have heard this morning is people who are passionate about what they do. For those of you who were in the classified session, you've already heard from Jim about how passionate he is in the business. We talk about OEMs. We spend a lot of time with OEMs. We did that in the Cribbins thing. And at the end of the day, you got to build and design aircraft correctly. But once you get past the aircraft, it's all those boxes and pieces of kits, sets, and outfits that bring young soldiers home. So we are very fortunate to have your AMSO, your electronic warfare guy, the center of attention for this information at Fort Rucker, Alabama, to kind of bring this and wrap it all up together. And so if he doesn't solve all your questions, that's where you're supposed to hit him hard at the end of this, okay? So, hey, Jim, with that, it's your show.
Hey, thank you, sir. So, again, CW5 VanMeter. I'm the new Survivability Branch Chief. I was thinking a lot about how I was going to start this brief. I warned the guys with the mic in the back, and you guys were in my classified. I start slow, but I rev up, so I know why you guys sat in the back road. What is Survivability Branch Chief? What is it really? What is Survivability Branch? And that's where we need to start thinking, is what is it? To me, Survivability Branch is the branch that provides the commanders survivability across the force. And what is survivability? We have to ask ourselves that. It's simple. It's preservation of combat power. We can have the best aircraft in the world. We can have the best pilots in the world. But without the thought of survivability, we don't have combat power because we only get one shot. And we might not even get that. So we have to think in multiple different levels to be able to preserve that combat power. So my job as a Survivability Branch Chief, as I'm discovering it, let's put it that way, is I have a lot of bosses. I have about 50 bosses, and I don't have really a lot of people I get to, boss around. Let's put it that way. I've got the TICMs, and they tell me what the force needs. I got DOTD, they tell me what they need and what I need to produce. I've got USAC's commander, he's giving me guidance and direction and telling me what I need to do. And then I have the warfighter. And to be honest with you, it's not just me providing to the warfighter things capabilities they can do to increase their survivability. It's the warfighter providing things to me that tells me what I need to do. So coming out of the force as a warfighter, I listen to that boss almost, don't tell anybody this, but more than my other bosses. Because it's the warfighter is what it's about. That's where survivability, it's where rubber meets the road. So when you, and I know most of my green shooters here have experienced that, start telling me this is what I need, this is what I don't have, this is what I don't know, it means an immense amount to me. So we have, as a team in survivability, a team of 6 people, small team, that we've taken that for real, and we've embraced it. And you will see, and I believe you have seen, a total evolution of the branch. The track, okay? The tracked officer from TAC Ops to AMSO. With that, I'm going to get started right off the bat by saying we're at the ASC conference. And if you have not had a chance to go over and really dig with those industry guys, as a green shooter, you're wrong. Thank you, industry. Right off the bat, industry is really what gives us the capability to be able to train survivability and execute it on the battlefield. I mean, I wrote 6 pages of notes. That's how much I've really enjoyed this ASC. So if you're not taking notes, I'll give you a minute to get your pen out. Survivability, in essence, is and we're going to see it in my brief, is multiple parts. But equipment, the material solution, is one of the primary legs of the triangle. We can go in, we can do a whole bunch of stuff, but against a modern threat without the equipment, we really don't have survivability. So make sure you get out in there and you thank the industry guys, and I'm personally thanking everybody for your passion, your dedication to providing to the warfighter what we need to be able to fly, fight, and win in the next engagement. All right, so thank you. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and get right into the brief. Next slide, please. So here's my agenda. It's not going to be a long brief, but it's going to be a detailed to a point, because I can't go any deeper. If you were showing up at this brief for the first time thinking I was going to give you all the answers, sir, I'm sorry. I can't. Almost everything we do for survivability right now is on a classified level. But this is going to hopefully salt the taste, and everybody's going to come back for more. So that's where we're going with this, and I won't read the agenda. Next slide. So I get into the job, and I give my command guidance. Hey, I want you to redesign the track. How are you going to do that, Mr. VanMeter? I was like, well, sir, I don't know what's wrong with it yet, but let me figure it out. We did some evaluation on what the AMSO was being taught in the AMSO course. Okay, we used other agencies to help us do that, DES, ASDAT. They came back with some reports and said, you're still teaching coin operation. So then I got some sampling from the field, and then they're like, I don't even know what LSCO means, okay? And then we did some question and answers. We did some surveys, and IADS was another mysterious acronym. Everybody could say it, but no one understood it. And then when we start talking RF threat, I almost got in some fistfights with some SPs, because I tell you, well, you haven't been training, you haven't been meeting the standard, and that will get you just about, squaring off. But this is the truth, and that's what I'm not trying to insult anybody. That's the truth. The enterprise has, over the last 15 years or 16 years of a coin fight, has had a lot on our plate. I mean, we had no more room. The potatoes and gravy and everything just took up everything. So we had to leave something on the buffet. And that was our RF training, RF tactics. That was almost everything that wasn't directly involved in the coin fight. But now we have to realize that buffet's over with. The next one we're going to, all right, that has to be the main dish. We have to get that kind of information on our plate. And we have to know it, train it, live it, understand it, emergency procedure it, whatever it takes. Because that is the next step, the next evolution in survivability training. So again, I redesigned the course. You'll see in the FY 19 to 20, which we're in right now. The great thing is the course, my redesigned AMSO course from the first day to the last day has been approved all the way up to TRADOC. It's sitting with TRADOC. We're waiting for them to buy on it. Good thing is the word General Lundy is all about it, so we just got to wait for the official process. That expands the course by a whole week. Within the course, you'll see a lot of the subject matter we cover now. We actually take these students, put them in the simulator, and fly them tactics, the new tactics. And we'll get to some of the tactics that are out there now. Can't get on the classified side. Well, in doing the tactics, we couldn't just add a week and fly tactics without designing or changing the academics that we train. I mean, if I execute a tactic and I don't understand the ASE, that other leg, then again, I might as well have not done the tactic. So we have to go back and we redesign the academics, started from, hey, what is radar? What is IR? What is DO? And we've now, on a classified environment, we teach students all the way through. We've been doing it kind of piecemeal for the last couple classes as we invented the wheel. It was kind of a bumpy ride. Now the wheel is ready to go. Our first AMSO class with the entire new academics starts in January. I go for Commandant approval in this month. Actually, it's next week. And then we execute the first redesigned AMSO course in January. When it gets approved at TRADOC, I'll get money for actually doing it. And that's when we get that week expansion. So it's pretty exciting. It's a lot of changes. What I was sitting there and I'm thinking about, everybody's hitting this 10-meter, 5 and 10-meter target, which is RF, which is LSCO, IADS, A2AD, use another acronym. All right, that's the 5 and 10-meter target, but the reality is 24 years in the Army, it's told me nothing's permanent except change. That's what I've learned. Nothing is permanent besides change. So as I design this perfect course for what the Army is facing now, what happens in 4 or 5 years? Okay, what happens as technology improves? What happens as FVL evolves? What happens when our adversary decides they want an FVL or they want a new piece of equipment? We might not even find ourselves in the next conflict against one of the people we're preparing to be against. So I had to design the course to be flexible. I've got Compo 2-3 out here, and they're getting ready to go to the coin fight right now. Okay, so do we prepare the AMSO to be able to train in that environment? And the answer is yes. That's what we want. We want a flexible course that teaches you multifaceted approach to training. My commander says, this is where we're going. As an AMSO, I say, Air Assault, sir, I got this. And I go in and I train to that mission while not leaving out all the rest of the missions. And it's a broad approach. I'm not using a paintbrush. I'm using a broom to put it on there, okay? We have to do that. Because the Army, again, we're rigidly flexible, right? So we have to be. So you see that's in the, we said 22 and beyond. The reality is that's got to happen today also. All right? And give you a minute to look at those subjects. In the classified brief, I covered a little bit about redefining the AMSO. Okay? And next slide, please. So when I redesigned the AMSO, especially as the AMSO, the Survivability Branch Chief, I had to, think about it. And I don't do anything in a vacuum. My team sat me down and helped me design the definition that we want for as an AMSO. I was given a lot of latitude to change the track. And so we're like, well, do we want them to be a mission planner? Do we want them to be an operations officer? Do we want them to be a tactics instructor? What do we want? How far are we willing to go? And as I told my green suiters and everybody else, I'll make sure you hear this too, I will go the direction that the warfighter needs me to go. And I'll fight. I'll fight whatever it takes. If they want to be tactics evaluators, watch out, man. Got a lot of IPs out there that's going to stand up, put on some gloves. And it's a fight. I might not win, but if that's the direction, commanders and the warfighters say we need to go that direction, that's the direction we're going to march. Currently, we're going to settle right this second for tactics instructors. So when I start thinking of tactics, and we laid it out there, they ran a QRT, quick reaction test, that went out to China Lake and developed actual flight maneuvers that would help us with the equipment be able to fight against RF threat. The problem with just those maneuvers is, and I heard it actually in the brief yesterday, that's only about 20% solution. That's it. Next slide. The 70 to 80% solution, which is what was said yesterday, is planning. Mission analysis and mission planning. The problem is, if I say mission planning to pick a cab out there right now, pick one, the way they perform mission planning is incorrect, not complete for the next fight. So this is where it starts, a new mindset. I have to start with teaching the AMSOs, stop doing what you're doing. Get over here and do it the right way. Now, I didn't invent this. I'm not the guy that woke up one morning and wrote down, this is what they need to do. I went to the right agencies. I went to, 160th. We went to some of the other joint agencies. And we said, how do you guys do this really cool mission? And they're like, well, like this. I was like, okay, that's really neat, but I don't have that much money. All right? I don't have those assets. But from their huge repertoire of being able to do it, I boiled it down and I looked at all the units across the Army, not just the active duty cabs. Okay, I went out and I sat down with the reserve component. I sat down with the guard component. And I said, hey, this is what I want to change. And everybody's like, yes, that's what we want. So now we developed a new way of mission planning. It starts with intelligence. It starts with intelligence preparation of the battlefield. It starts with understanding your ASC. It starts with comparing your ASC's capability to the enemy's threat capability. There is no more of these hasty air assaults where you come in, it's a 5-minute brief, you run, jump to your aircraft, and go. Not happening. You have to take a very concerted approach to see what is out there, what you're going to fly against. And as we know, as we've seen, even in unclassified multitude of briefs, you're not facing one threat, you're facing a lot of threat. So your mission planning might be, I've got to choose which threat I want to fight, not try to avoid all threat. That's wrong way of thinking. There's no such thing as avoiding all threat. Which threat do I want to fight? Which threat can I fight? Fly, fight, and win. The other thing we're doing is the Army is just a little bit behind our other services when it comes to information. Those services live in the secret and TS level. The Army does not. Okay, you go into a line unit and you start talking about secret information and you will send shivers down junior officer's spine because they're always told that that's hush-hush. The problem is they don't even know it, but they live and breathe secret information all the time. That's the other deficiency. We don't even recognize our mission plan as being that secret. We have to change that mindset. Because you see up there, part of the mission planning is getting joint enablers. I had a good time in 2010 working with some joint forces. They taught me everything I didn't know. And what was really neat about that, I was like, why didn't I know that before? And they're like, you're Army. None of you guys ever come to the table. Well, why don't we come to the table? They're like, we don't know. So I go ask the Army, and they're like, I didn't know there was a table. Okay, got it. I happen to be in a good position now where I can say, Army, there's the table, go get at it. And that's what we're doing. We're executing training now that brings my senior level AMSOs at the battalion and brigade level into a joint way of thinking. If you're a brigade AMSO, there's no reason why you're not in constant communication with joint assets on the battlefield, the same battlefield you're fighting on. Everybody talks about it. You know, you have joint enablers. There's this EW capability. Right, that's just great. Stop talking about it and go get them. Learn who they are. Understand what they can do. Don't just talk about, well, they can do jamming. Well, what? Go learn at what they can do, how they do it, how they can help you on your mission. Some of those really neat things that you think, well, they have this. It'll never be for me because it's always for special ops. Wrong answer. They're wanting you to go ask them to help you. We just didn't know how to ask. We're fixing that. We're changing that whole mindset. Well, we'll get to the training I'll do here in a minute. So that's the 70 to 80%. That's the most important part of being able to fly, fight, and win in the next battle. Next slide. But when planning isn't enough, and I know you're saying, well, you said that's the most important part, 70, 80%. Why is that not enough? Well, because we're sitting here talking about our capabilities. What we got to realize is our adversary has a big say. They have an order of battle. They're mobile. They have secret level and TS level stuff too that we don't know about. So when planning isn't enough, when planning failed us to be able to stay out of harm's way, we have to have this triangle approach, the triad of being able to survive. Now, you see at the bottom I have low-level NOE flight. That's another hiccup the Army's undergone. 16 years of war, the Army forgot that I can fly low to the ground. Okay? I can get down there. I can yank it back. I got to throw it out there. I remember at Fort Campbell, young W1 VanMeter was learning how to fly, and I was terrified because my IP had me about 10 feet below the tree line. And he said this jokingly, but I took it for real. He goes, yeah, you got to go low enough that if you're not pulling branches out of your wispus, you're not low enough. Well, holy cow. Terrifying. Wow. If I could take his statement, put it in a big banner, and advertise it to you, I'd just tell you, he's about right. All right? We have to get back to that. We have hard decks at the CTCs. Got to get rid of them. Now, why am I preaching that to AMSOs? Shouldn't that be an IPSP thing? No. Because you have to develop the training plan. Okay? The survivability officer has to develop the aviation mission survivability training plan. And in there, low-level flight is part of the triangle. So I now have to risk mitigate it and then brief it to the commander. Now, risk mitigation. Okay, everybody starts saying, well, Mr. VanMeter, you said the classified, the Army has gone a little bit risk averse. Well, it's not risk averse. It's basically not understanding risk. I have battalion commanders, honestly, that weren't in the Army when we basically went to these wars. Okay? They don't understand anything, but as a young platoon leader, young company commander, S3, they don't understand anything but a risk program, a risk mitigation program. Accept only the must of risks and get rid of everything else, or cancel a mission and we'll figure out another way to do it. What I'm trying to tell everybody is we're not going to go to our commander and be like, sir, you have to accept that high risk. It's not going to happen. But you have to make him understand that to accept risk in training, okay, reduces risk on mission. And that's the truth. So you've got to understand, if you help him design, or you help him understand your training, you help him understand what you're getting at for low-level flight, okay, he will accept it. He'll start growing into that risk, and it'll improve your organization. Now, there is a low-level TSP designed by DES. It's at the flight training branch getting ready to be pushed out as official, real, start training it. It happens so much to be an AMS-based training low-level TSP. That means it's not just going to teach you to get down in the trees. It's a scenario-based with threat, with how to maneuver. That's the right answer. Don't just be fly really low over a field. How do I maneuver through terrain low-level? Day, night, and VG. All right? Now let's look at the other two legs there real quick. The ASC, we've already talked about it. It's one of the walls of our tent right there. Without the equipment, we don't have that leg. But I'm going to go a step further. Next slide. Not just without the equipment, but look at tactics on the other side. Application of knowledge. Do you think that's the knowledge of the tactic? No, it's knowledge of your ASC and the tactic. And that's where I'm going to fix what we know and what we train is we have to understand our ASC. Does it have limitations? Yes. Are there new advancements coming? Yes. Do we have them yet? No. Should we wait? No. Train what we have now. All right, let's learn the ASC we have and continue to progress as technology improves. I will redesign the tactics as technology gets better. I get a new piece of ASC and it might completely null and void one of those 2900 series tasks. I'll tear it out of the book. We'll run whatever we need to run. We'll put a new one in for that new piece of equipment. But it won't help you unless you understand what that piece of equipment can do. Does it see this threat? Can it decoy defeat this threat? What is it? And then I say ASC, and I know everybody immediately defaults to what I've been preaching on for a couple of months now, RF, but that's not it. IR, okay? Unguided munitions, okay? Everything's on the table. That's why I didn't specifically label the threat on that triangle. ASE, for any threat. Tactics, for any threat. Low-level flight, for any threat. Know where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing, okay? Next slide. Okay, so I keep talking about fixing it, and I know you're getting a little bored with that. You probably wrote fix it with a bunch of exclamation marks, and you're like, Mr. VanMeter, how are you going to do it? Well, I've been asked that once before. I was doing a briefing of PCC. It was, about a month in the job, Lee, and I was like, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to fix it, and I had a brigade commander stand up and go, Mr. VanMeter, that's fantastic. All right, you're rewriting the AMSO course. You say you're going to fix it, you're going to fix that. But how about all my TAC ops officers that went through the course 3 years ago? How are you going to fix them? You want to fix the force, fix them also. Yes, sir. So how am I going to do it? Well, of course, I run around with my hand out up to USAC's been like, can I do an MTT? Colonel Ryan told me to get out of his office. I asked for if I could create a whole new course or add another week to this course or train it here or at least go a traveling road show with my team and we could train. And I was told absolutely not. There was no money for that. If I could get money from another agency, I could do it. Well, I wasn't going to specifically. There's no direct agency that would have supported that kind of training, except one. Remember I talked to you about the warfighters? As soon as I put it out there that I have training that can teach you everything that I just talked about, make the AMSO a primary trainer in the unit, not just the really smartest guy, but the trainer that trains everybody to be smarter than him, you guys ran in and said, I want a part of that class. So I have the force paying their way for AMSOs to come to Rucker for a 2-week course coming up in December. That's where we're going to go lock the doors, and we're going to figure this out. We're going to teach you exactly what you need to know, exactly how to do it. Now, you're not going to hear that much from me because I said I work with 6 other guys. The 5 of them are way smarter than me. Okay, they're going to teach you what you need to know. I just get to be the guy to introduce and close it out. There's a couple other training events you see up there. After getting these tactics, developing these tactics, and then sitting down with DES, DES goes, hey man, you keep talking about tactics instructor. You know you can't fly that tactic in the aircraft unless you're an IP for the first time. I go, it just so happens I am an SP. I do know that. So we're already setting up to go teach IPC. We've done it. We've taught the SPs. We've taught IPC at 110th Brigade. We've taught them twice. We've got a couple more training events coming up. We have taught them the mechanics of how to execute the maneuvers. I don't have 6 weeks to teach the dang IPs the science behind the maneuvers, so don't think I'm making them miniature AMSOs. I'm not. But they are the experts at maneuvering that aircraft. They are the experts at knowing whether or not you can handle that aircraft. They will teach you your power requirements. And now that we've executed the training with them on the maneuvers, they're going out into the forces young IPs, and they're training that maneuver. Now they need to train the maneuver and then battle hand that pilot off to the AMSO. So the AMSO can evaluate or basically train how to apply that maneuver in a combat environment. AMS-based training against threat, not just out flying the back 40 at Hood or something, against threat. We'll get to some of the challenges on that here in a minute. I also, as Mr. Lindell in the back knows, I wasn't really focused on how I was going to get Compo 2 and 3 completely read in. So in my defense, I'm glad to have awesome guys like Mr. Lindell that brought me to Knox, sat me down in a room full of 8 W5s, it's the scariest thing I've ever seen. And those guys hammered me on how I needed to include Compo 2-3. Little wall-to-wall counseling. I learned, and I left there, and now I'm very focused on making sure those compos of our force get the exact same training, get the same thought process. Okay, and they were just as willing. They threw money on the table and been like, I'll finance you. You train me. Done. I have an Eats and Watts training on there. That's just the start. These are not just going to be one time and done. I'm looking to repeat all this training. But here's the thing. General Gaylor told me, he goes, I need you to teach the CTCs. Roger, sir, we'll do that. And I need you to develop training that is real relevant and actually helps the force. What that was to me is that was a clue that if I get this right, okay, I get this training correct, and I get AMSOs going back, and commanders are very much impressed with the product I gave them, then they're going to call Colonel Ryan, which immediately feeds up to the boss, and the boss says, that's great, execute a second time. That's how I get another chance to do this. Of course, if I fall on my face, okay, then it's on me. But I asked my AMSOs to make sure, especially my senior AMSOs, make sure you're sending the right people to my training. Okay? I don't want the guy that's not going to be able to go back to the unit and produce. I need the rock stars. I will train them. They'll go train the force. We'll leave the guys that won't do that behind. Some of the challenges I already talked about. I got no funds. I got nothing I can pay for. I'll run around with my hand out. I'm hoping that if this gets momentum, it changes. Okay? Some of the other challenges are resource. I told you I got 6 people. So I've got another fantastic asset sitting right here is the ASDAT chief. Okay, working extremely close with ASDAT. They are helping me instruct these courses. They are just as read in on all the training as I am. and they are going to grab some of this training and run with it. They have money. They go to the units. And don't just think if you don't see me, you see Mr. Brasuelas. I'm like, I'm not getting the same training. You're getting better. He's awesome. His team is fantastic. All right? And without him, I wouldn't have what I have. The last challenge for the training is time. Guess what? Everybody wants it now. I got it. The STACOM 1804 came out. I know. I helped write it. We said 180 days. Well, that started what? Back in September? Yeah, our time's ticking. So now everybody's like, you got to get to train my unit before that 180 days so I can be ready. I got it, man. I got 6 people, and I got a small ASDAT team too. My wife's going to get mad at me. I'm never going to be home. All right? We are doing everything we can to train. But here's the thing. I'm not going to rush it either. I've got to do it right. I'd rather go back to DES, sit down with Todd Seville, and be like, hey, man, we need to fix that STACOM. Give them another 90 days or something because I couldn't get it done in time. I'll take the hit. I'd rather do that than rush through and train my AMSOs, and then they can't train their own people. I did it wrong then. Let's do it right first out of law of primacy, right? Next slide. So here's the subject list that we got packed in. It's the same subject list for all the T2A training, TAC Ops to AMSO. Everybody knows it's officially AMSO now. TAC Ops has been removed. It's official this year. All right, so it is AMSO. So now everybody that was TAC Ops before, I go through T2A, you are now an AMSO, a current, real, relevant, ready to train your unit AMSO. All right, and that's the subject list we're going. Now, don't get the T2A confused with the ATIT3. That's Aviation Tactics Instruction, Train the Trainer. And that's what I'm teaching the IPs, okay? That's the mechanics of the maneuver. The T2A teaches the application of the maneuvers with the ASE-based knowledge. Now, why, you're saying, Mr. VanMeter, you're saying you want everybody in the Army to know this. Why are you focused on AMSOs? Well, because I have to have a point into your unit. You're it. Once I train you, you turn and share all that knowledge. So that's the direction I'm going. I have to have a way into your unit. If I just throw out a blanket Army training, all right, I might not get people that can regurgitate that training. You are my regurgitation of the right training. You have a job now to continue to communicate with me, to stay relevant and current, all right, to stay with ASDAT, constantly communicate with ASDAT, to get the real information. And then if you have all that information and you're not sharing it, you're weak. Knowledge is power only when shared. My job in the Army has always been to make everybody around me smarter than I am. Hasn't been very difficult, but that's my job. That's now your job. All right, next slide. So here's some of the overall challenges I have to the entire redesign of the AMSO. All right? These are going to be fun. Communication and knowledge share among the AMSO community. Some of you at Classified Brief the other day heard me touch on it. It was like a stick of dynamite I threw in there, and then we ended the whole brief, right? That AMSOs have more lines of communication than any other track in the Army. We have, through just Survivability branch, I got 2 web pages, a secret and a nipper. I have DCS that happens quarterly. We publish our number on everything. I mean, you probably find it on the bathroom wall. We want you guys to call us, okay? We have multiple articles we publish in both Army Aviation Magazine, and now we've approached Army Digest, so I'm communicating with you. Then I have ASDAT, and they're wide open. They also have 2 web pages, and they have multiple other ways to communicate with them. They write their number everywhere too. Let me go a step further. Then I got PMASC. They're doing the same thing, saying communicate if you want to know about equipment. And all 3 of our agencies are always talking. And yet, every time I get more than 2 AMSOs in a room, you know what the one thing I hear that just makes me fall down? Well, I didn't know that. Where am I supposed to find that information? You know, get on some of our web pages. Call me if you need to. Call me directly. If you don't know something, I'd rather talk to you on the phone and get to you than in a forum like this where my AMSOs go, well, that's new. Oh, man, It's not new. It's out there. Let's fix it. Get to your force, especially my senior AMSOs. Get to your force. Snatch up those younger AMSOs. Be like, here's your means of communication. Start quizzing them on information that you know is out there. Why not? The other tracks do that. Let's police up our track. All right? Ask them ASC capabilities. Ask them threat capabilities. If they don't know, it's on our webpage. All right. Then I look at changing how to train. That's a leadership mindset. That's for me. All right. I'm tackling that one. I've got great resources. I've got the USAC's commander. That's who I got. And he's helping me change leadership mindset. Cab leaders, battalion commanders across the Army, that we don't just need to do an instrument flight out to Sikeston, Missouri to go to Lambert's home to throw rolls, okay? That's the days of old. All right, every time we launch an aircraft, even if it's instruments, you fly your instrument flight for your instrument training, then when you break out, you have a tactical aspect to it. Something tactical. While your instruments start asking questions about threat, about ASC. It has to have a tactical element. That's out there. Now, I know if I asked how many people flew a flight where you didn't do anything about AMS, there would be a couple hands, probably more than I'd like. But the reality is we have to change that mindset. That big green machine was not made for a dinner run. It wasn't even made for VIP, guys. It was made for tactical engagement on a battlefield. So we have to start focusing on that. Every element, every flight has to have an element of AMS. Even if it's just question and answer. Grab an EOMS and be like, hey man, what does that do? How does that work? What does it see? And watch the crazy answers you're going to get. Do no notices. Work with your stands. Do no notices and be like, hey, I know I'm flying as a PC, but I'm going to ask them all these AMS questions. These are what I'm going to ask them. Your SP will approve it, then you come back to them and be like, you got all these wrong. Then let your SP get in on them. Why not? Work closely with your other tracked officers. Every flight has to have an AMS. So the leaders are buying it, okay? They're buying it by the fistfuls. I like it. That doesn't mean it's bled all the way down to their lower levels yet. Give me time. I'll get there. This is a very new concept, okay? Especially for my units that are getting ready to deploy. A lot of commanders go, well, I don't want to waste my time on that. Matter of fact, some of the questions I've been asked is, while we're deployed, do you think we should start training this tactics and stuff? And guys, I'm here to tell you, yes. Convince your commander that's what you need to do. If you can fly with the advanced tactics focused on ASE while you're in a non-threat environment deployed, you can do it for real when you need to later. Can you do the harder mission? Yes. Then that makes the easy mission easy. That's the right way to think about it. I can fly with AMS on my mind in a coin environment. Why not? The harder of the two is the LSCO. That's the harder of the two. Makes coin easy. But it needs to be real. So yes, convince your commander. Okay? Let me know. I'll help send the message out. But yes, that's the right answer. Train it now. Train it 5 minutes ago, train it now, train it 5 minutes from now, train it, period. Never stop. All right? So we'll fix the leadership. That's cool. Takes time. Development and implementation of doctrine and training for new ASE as it comes out. I got the note. I told you, 8 pages of notes. It was a fantastic comment said, I believe it was Colonel Cheney said it, from flash to bang, it takes about 3 years for new ASE to hit the road, hit the market, hit the force. Got it. 3 years. I wrote that down because that to me is real. 3 years. Let me think about 3 years. Let's see, 3 years, that's the average time it takes to become a PC. 3 years, and that's at least 2 change of commands, all right? Maybe only 1 if he's right in the middle. 3 years, that's a PCS cycle. 3 years, that's an average enlistment. 3 years, that's 2 deployments if you're on, year off. That's a long time. So do we sit and wait? No. We have to, at my job, I have to continue to communicate with the PM and industry to understand what's coming in 3 years. Because it takes me at best, 18 months to change doctrine. Now I have a new piece of equipment out there. If I don't know about it in that 3 years, then it hits the ground. You still got 18 months to wait before I can even tell you how to train to use it. Now, we got rapid fielding stuff and all this stuff. It's still, the force does not get it until it's doctrine. And it's official USACE's DOTD approved training. That's when the force bites. Takes me 18 months at best. So during that 3 years, let me worry about what's coming next. Let me work with the PM in the industry. You don't wait 3 years for the new stuff. Train what you have now. Because it might not be 3 years before the next hopping over a berm, okay? So that's why I said I love that. How long does it take to actually develop doctrine and training? As I said, we did some doctrine. It took about 18 months for the QRT doctrine to hit the road. All right. I would say if the new piece of equipment came out and we really had to get it out there, we could probably do it in under a year. That's develop, design, execute, validate training, rewrite, publish, and issue new doctrine. That's an extremely tight timeline, guys. So let me worry about that part. You guys just tell me what you need. So here I have limited ASC B kits. This was covered. This is a material issue, and it was very well addressed in the forums yesterday. We know it's out there. It's real. Where that bleeds into is the next step there. ASC training simulations and scenario-based training. If I don't have the ASC when I'm stateside, how can I train? Even better than that, there are simulators coming out to be able to simulate an ASC and RF environment, a threat environment, okay? But only if I have the ASC on my aircraft can I simulate it. So again, we got challenges. This is not for you guys to run and try to fix, all right? This is on the other agencies we work with. We express, hey man, that simulator's great, but you're missing a step. I don't have any ASC. Let the PM jump on this, okay? We are addressing it at our level, so there are other simulations coming out. Let's take it a step further. Why are you not training some of your AMS training in the simulators? I got it. So classified simulations. No one has a bigger challenge than that than I do at Rucker. All right? I have foreign nationals in and out of every aircraft simulator all the time. And trust me, if I say, well, I would like to make the whole thing secret, so I'll be literally, Mr. Hotel will throw me out of DOS. Okay? It won't happen. It's millions and millions of dollars to even go secret, back to unclassified, back to secret. It's not happening. So we have had a hurdle. How do I train a classified when I can't do it in the aircraft? Because the simulations for doing it in the aircraft don't exist yet, or I don't have the right piece of equipment to finally execute. That's what industry's working on that, guys. Give them their due, give them time. For us, figure out how to train it in the simulator. Not everything has to be classified. Okay, I can run an AMS scenario with unclassified information and put a whole bunch of threats out in the simulator. In the AVCAT, it's the most underutilized piece of equipment I think we have in Army Aviation. It's actually a pretty good tool to put in a threat environment and fly it. I know you got to wear that helmet and it hurts. Whatever. Go fly it. And then we run into some of the other challenges where, hey, how do we talk about the classified information while we're in the simulator when most of our sim operators, okay, the contractors don't have security clearances? I got it. We are tackling that hurdle right now. We're making a way to train the maneuvers unclassified, but it's a challenge. And I got it. Compo 2-3, you're sitting there kicking the table over too, going, hey, don't forget about us. We have an even bigger challenge. We don't even have SIPR connectivity. So don't worry about us talking about it. We don't even know what it is. Okay, I'm getting there. We'll fix it. Everything I keep saying we'll fix. Remember I said at the beginning, I'll fight for what you need. Might not win, but I'll go down, swinging. So we already know that's an issue. I'm working with the Reserve and Guard Bureau. We're trying to fix it. All right? It's not, if it was on me, I would just go fix it. But what it is it's other agencies that aren't aviation and they don't have our mindset and don't understand what we need. All right, let's talk about one that was brought up yesterday, security clearances. Actually, it was brought up about a month ago, but it was brought up yesterday during a classified brief. Security clearance for our non-rated crew members. That's big. That's huge. So how do I jump in an aircraft and train in the States with a non-rated crew member in the back of an aircraft when he doesn't have a secret security clearance? The right answer from me at this time is I got it. I understand. It's a heck of a challenge. I don't have a perfect solution yet. It's not just James is working it. The command knows this is a true challenge. Okay? It is being discussed at the upper levels. We will come up with a solution. The second part of that answer is once you deploy, convince your commander to accept the risk and go do it. He can give those non-rated crew members an interim security clearance. I say waive it. It's actually, they still have to go through the process, but they get an interim security clearance while they're over there at the commander's risk acceptance, and then go fly those maneuvers. All right? Then that begs the question that was also brought to me yesterday. Hey, do you think the non-rated crew members should have this training? Should they know this information? James says, absolutely. I know my crew chiefs have gotten me out of a bad way probably most of the time. I want them to know everything I know. I want to train them. I have limitations. Watch it. Don't take it beyond the limitations until we can get you a better answer, guys. That's the way to get yourself in sort of trouble. And right now, as we change and we shift our direction in the AMSO track, don't burn a bridge for me. All right? You do it wrong, we end up with egg on our face as a track. So as I said, watch what we do. Step lightly. Eventually, the momentum will build up and we'll be at a dead sprint. All right? Last couple things I want to add on here before I get to the next slide, which I think is questions, is, okay, so I made some notes on here about, I was asked a little earlier, hey, why aren't we more involved with, as a survivability, directly with industry? And I said, well, I kind of am. I don't know how you think I'm not. And they're like, well, no, the PM is in there. It's someone not understanding the whole process, and that's fine. So I figured I'd clarify it right here because you had the briefs from the major players, so at least understand it. The program managers, they go through a specific process to acquire new materials, JSIDs, and there's other processes out there. They work directly with the vendors, the industry, to develop the best product. They test that product, okay, and then they provide it to the force. Now, I'm very read in. I say I. My team is extremely read in with the PM, ASC, with some of the other PMs. You'd be surprised how read in we are. I got TICM representatives here, the TRADOC capability managers. They work with the PMs all the time. I was TICM FVL. I understand that. They are green suiters that work directly with the PMs, which are usually 90% of the time green suiters, okay, that work direct with industry to write capability requirements. I know you guys have heard all the acronyms in some of these briefs. I heard them too. I even heard some new ones. But like the KPP, the ICD, the IRCD, the AOA, milestone, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and all this stuff. You've heard all these, and a lot of people have come and asked me what they're talking about. All I can tell you, man, is it would take me hours to go through all the acronyms I just said. So go on, if you really want to know, you can go online to the Defense Acquisition University, and there are classes you can take free. Just sign up for them, and you can understand this JSIDS process. In understanding that, it'll alleviate a lot of the questions that are going on in the hallway. Why can't we get that piece of equipment, right? That's what I want. I love it. Yes, get as much information about it. But don't get upset that we don't have it because there's a process, and it has to go through that. Industry accepts it. We accept it. Okay? So we just have to work the process. I am very read in on that. So if you have questions, I can get you in touch with the PM if you can't directly communicate with them, or we can go and ask industry questions directly. We can't make promises, but we can go ask questions. All right? And that's why these events are freaking awesome. So what is my role in that? So I wrote that down. What is my role? My role is training, doctrine, and leadership in the .mil PF format. Okay? I specifically wait for the PM to go, hey, Mr. VanMeter, here's a new piece of equipment. I was like, wow, sir, that's fantastic. What other literature you got? I take that literature, and then we go out and write doctrine based on its capabilities. We go write doctrine based on the unit, what their mission is, and how they're going to employ this new piece of equipment. And then we create training, and we push training out for how to do it. And then we convince leadership that this is what needs to happen. This is the training. This is the piece of equipment, not that old stuff. And I know all of you have been in units where you were using the Kick 13 instead of the ANCD. And then, you remember those? Because leadership had not yet been convinced to get rid of the old and use only the new. And that's our challenge at DOTD, is to convince leadership the new is the new, it's the hotness. So that was one of the questions that I wrote down. I wrote down a whole bunch. You know what? Next slide. This is how I'll get them. It's an exciting time to be an AMSO. Okay? It is a really exciting time. The Army is thirsty for this. Now, I've got rock stars in the room like Machine Gun Mike Kelly standing over there. He did the best at changing the direction of the branch. And then because of these long, drawn-out coin fight, it got shelved. Okay? The momentum never built because of the long, drawn-out fight we were in. Well, now, as those fights change and the Army refocuses, they turn and they go, well, hey, where's that package you promised us? And we're like, well, we're in Afghanistan. What? So now the Army's thirsty. They say, give me what we need to fly, fight, and win in an LSCO, in an IADS environment. So they're starving for this. So we turn and we either go, hey, Stans, fix the force. Stans has got more on their plate than you possibly could imagine. All right, the Stans, and so because they're so task saturated, the command knows this. So they turn to the AMSO and be like, I need you to step up. I need you to be able to teach. So it's an exciting time, man. You get to redesign who you are. It's not James VanMeter writing it, okay? I'm not the guy that wakes up and goes, today I'm going to change what you do in your job. It's you, and you tell me what your unit needs to do, what you need to train, and I will help you develop it. I'm wide open, guys. Survivability is not a closed organization where I know we live in a vault. I got it. Okay. But that vault is still two-way communication. For a while there, Survivability had a tendency, or at least a reputation, of being an agency organization that took knowledge and never shared. I already told you my motto, and so I live with guys that are smarter than me. You make everybody around you smarter than you, and if someone's still smarter than you because you don't know, you call me. I'll get you the information you need, then you can be smarter than them until you teach them to be smarter than you. How is that for a mouthful? That's what Survivability is now. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions.
Everybody throw your hand up at once. You got two mics.
Yeah, CW5 Brian McGlone, 2 cab. So James, I'm going to hit you with quite a few questions here, just because some of these efforts have been everlasting, and your passion and drive coming in as a new chief, I think, can help make some of these changes. We always keep hearing about the S2s and how they don't have an understanding of aviation or what the aviation requirements are for the intelligence preparation of the battlefield. Mm-hmm. And I understand the Aviation Center of Excellence, you've offered to have the S2s come to the TAC Ops course, or the AMSO course. Is there any efforts with the Aviation Center of Excellence, working with the Intelligence Center of Excellence, to get aviation blocks of instruction put into those RLO courses, the warrant officer courses, and the enlisted courses to make them smarter so we're not having to start from square one on that?
Fantastic question. And the simple 3-letter answer is yes. Those efforts are there. The talks are already underway. The challenge, and the reason why it hasn't happened yet, because I've already talked to the Intelligence Center of Excellence, and the reason why it hasn't happened yet is because who's the bill payer? Is it going to be aviation to send people to them to train aviation in their course? Or is it going to be MI that sends people to aviation to get smart and go back and teach their course? There's not a roadmap for this. There is guest speaking. They're already doing that at MI now. So that's actually it's been about 6 months. They've had guest speakers that are aviation, come from USACs, not survivability specifically, but go out there and talk about aviation operations. So it's real, it's growing. It's a seedling right now. Give it 100 years, it'll be a tree. But we want it to go faster than that. So yes, S2s right now in the force. Remember I told you I was told to fix the force? Until we can grow an MI lieutenant that understands aviation from their course, I'm not going to stop taking young MI officers to the AMSO course and teaching them everything. Anything we teach in AMSO 2, I'm willing to teach in S2. And I will also explain the difference of where an S2 stops and the AMSO begins. All right? Straight to them. So does that help answer your question? All right.
Got it.
Sir.
It's got a caveat to that. So typically when the S2s come to the AMSO course, they get some training in that course, and then actually Toby Long sends them over, and they spend a day or two with Mr. Whitmire at ASDAT, and he does some aviation support intel support to aviation training with them and mentorship with them. So that's available. If you want to do a unit assistance visit, that's kind of the a la carte menu of what ASDAT has to offer to provide that mentorship and training for those AMSOs. But also our SOAC, for the last couple of years, has been working a program, and they're in the process of right now of writing aviation intelligence course that they're going to run. And they tried to run it through the Intelligence Center, and they're just not necessarily embracing it, and who's the bill payer. So they're standing up their own course, and at some point there will probably be seats available for regular Army aviation intel folks to go through that as well.
Yeah, they're probably six months to a year out before they get their course fully stood up. So as soon as they say we can attend the course, all of you will know about it. And we'll blast it out on all those web pages and everything saying, send your S2, and we'll flood them. We'll make it such a great idea they can't teach it.
I think the thing there, though, is why do we have to have these additional courses for them to come to? Why not capture them in the pipeline right away?
How big is aviation in the Army? So they train a generic intelligence officer to support the main effort, which is infantry, which is armor, which is artillery. That's who they're training. So we're an extra to that. So MI believes, hey man, if you want them to know something different, you train them. We're fixing it though. It's coming around.
That's a good point. But what we do is, as we assign people, we know they're going to different units that require different capabilities, and so maybe what they need is if a 2 is going to go to an aviation unit, then they come automatically en route if they haven't been before and get that check.
Agree, sir. Okay. Sir.
In years past, we've had S2s come to the AMSO course. I had an AMSO come to my course with me who's in my unit, and then she proceeded to go to the Marines Aviation Intelligence course. Is there any thought of us sending AMSOs to tactics courses of other services or intelligence courses of other services to broaden our toolkit?
The easy answer is no, not in the big Army. It's a money thing. It's also a seat thing. It's also can we justify the need? Can we justify the money? And the answer is no, not at this time. Right now, the only people that are going to the other services tactics schools are the 160th, the regiment guys. And they go to those schools, which is, to be honest with you, that's okay, because they are wide open to sharing with us. Brett McFarland, okay, which everybody saw, he was just awarded yesterday. Brett has been working extremely close to us with another guy named Dave Curran. They both have attended those courses. They're bringing tons of the information back to us. The actual academics that are on the classified side, the training, they've sat down and helped us integrate all that. My question would be, because we're redesigning everything, we already have their information, can we justify sending you to a tactics course? Now, I know you're fixed wing, so that might be a little dial to that. I got it. But for the big part of aviation, the answer is no, I can't justify it. I couldn't even win that argument if I wanted to. For fixed wing, that's a whole different discussion. That's probably for you and me sit down later, as we already have once, but we'll do it again, and see where you need to go with the Army fixed wing tactics. Because we need to do something. Everybody's been focused on rotary wing because that's the preponderance of our force. But fixed wing, we can't leave you standing out in the rain and expect you not to catch a cold. So we'll fix you, all right?
They're walking mics over to other folks. See, while you're doing that,
Sir.
You were also talking about the enablers and that so many guys in the Army don't know where the table is. How are we taking a look at where joint force enablers are located in the United States and how we set those tables up so we can train together, like at the CTCs or even at home station training?
Yes, sir. So there's multiple exercises that they conduct a year. We, as my survivability branch, in that 2-week course, if I had to put the schedule up there, you'd have seen where we actually have an entire block of instruction talking about those joint exercises. Okay, we can't tell you what they do there because it's only on a secret level. You have to go TS to look at that. But we talk about those joint exercises, red flag and a couple of the other heavy hitters out there. We encourage, they want Army participation. We encourage you as a unit to approach those organizations and say, here we are. We might not have the right assets to play, but can we send observers? All right, the Air Force loves observers. You go out there and you at least observe how it works, how they're functioning in those large exercises. Most of those exercises are, when I say joint, there is Army participation. We participate as UAV, we participate as ATS, we participate in those exercises. You don't even hear about it because aviation just inherently hasn't. That doesn't mean you can't. So another thing is in that 2-week training, to answer the general's question, is we have a TS brief where we take anybody that's coming, well, not anybody, let me rephrase that because then I'm going to have everybody trying to get TS clearance. We're going to take the brigade level guys specifically that have a TS clearance. We're taking them to the SCIF, and I've got representatives, a colonel and a GS-15 from the LeMay Center of Excellence coming down to give a brief. Now, I know a lot of you sit there and go, oh, Air Force giving us a brief. It's not tax ags. It's not. Okay? I sat down with Major Hopkins, which is our Air Force representative right there in DOTD. I was like, listen, sir, this is what I need. I need someone really smart to come down and give this brief. And my basic insight to him was, I'm an Army guy. I'm on the ground down here. I've got a mission to go from A to B. How do I know what joint neighbors are up there and how to get in contact with them, how to communicate with them, where to get their frequencies from, how to rig the dang ATO? And he goes, okay. I get someone to teach that. He goes, that sure ain't me. I was like, that's fine. I don't care who it is. But if they come teach, I don't need an Air Force brief. I need someone who's so smart in understanding the joint operations that they can turn around and look at it from where I'm standing as an Army guy. So we have that. And they've developed that brief. I've gotten small read-ins on what they're going to brief. It's going to be fantastic. So that's how we get to the table, sir.
I just had a caveat on the WTI stuff is those are really great schools and do a lot of great things, but very few, the throughput is pretty low. So 34th Weapons Squadron out at Nellis, I sat in on some stuff with them. They had 2 students going through in a 6-month course. But when you look at the content of the stuff they teach, we do a lot of that in the Army already. It's not a WTI. They have an energy management phase, and that's nothing more than combat maneuvering flight, so we have our STANS folks doing that. They learn about threat. They learn how to fly against a threat. So I'd ask you to change your perspective how you think about that, because it's about bandwidth. One guy being the expert on everything. There's people who can do it, but that's a hard task to do, and it's hard to train it. So just task organize. Let's let the SPs do the energy management stuff, train their force to do that. AMSOs are teaching about threat, how to mitigate those threats and fly against them. So change your perspective of a WTI because it's a money thing, bottom line, and we're basically doing that stuff in Army aviation already.
Cool.
There was another question, hand up a minute ago.
Got anybody?
Oh, okay. Got 8 pages.
Yeah, I got a lot of notes.
So
As you mentioned in the slides, and our focus as the our track and what we need to look at. Don't want to get any more involved with intelligence preparation of the battlefield and getting tied in with our SEMA brethren. Do you foresee implementing the SOAMs that the 160th uses, that little cell, into future doctrine for us to have as a guide with regards to the upcoming .9 change or anything like that for us?
So I love the SOAM concept. The problem is, at the battalion level, we don't have an EW officer right now. We don't have like a aviation liaison officer, ALO. We don't have a lot of that. Not only that, our S2 cell is not very robust, and as we just established, not the best trained in most cases. So what the 160th has set up is extremely professional people that are there long term, that have the super background training, that know their job. They actually have GS people that stay in the 160th, 20 years after they retired from the Army, and they know the job. They know where to get it on. So does their model work in the big force? Yes and no. So yes, we want to model off of how they operate between the EW officer, the S2, and their AMSO. We want to model that. The problem is I can't say I want that cell because I don't have the people. And if I did get the people together, we wouldn't have the same flow that they have. So remember, it's two different units, two different missions, and that's why it's a challenge when everybody wants to be the 160th, but you just can't be the 160th. So the other part of that is, do we have that kind of a cell capability at brigade? And the answer, again, yes and no. We have more of that expertise, but we also have a larger mission than they have individually when we go to a cab. We fight at a larger battle space. We have more airframes and a multitude of different mission sets. They don't. All right? So, again, at brigade, I can't focus all my eggs into one type of mission in one basket to prepare for this. And then when that mission's over, I would shift to the next mission. It doesn't happen. I have, multiple airframes. I got a GSAB, an assault, and an attack, and a RA battalion. And they all have their own mission. And my brigade, having that kind of a cell, works. But again, they have large breadth, but they're not very deep. Okay, so no depth. So that's the only way I can explain it. Again, change an MTO, give us the right people, make them GS that deployable GS that could go with us, and then I'll set up those cells and we will kick it. But not at this time. No, we can't do that reset capability. Go ahead.
And so my next question with regards to, look at survivability as a whole, PR is one of those key components. When we can't defeat it, we can't break the kill chain, and we go down. So obviously there's been a lot of talk within the track of removing the PR focus and getting back to tactics and ASC and all those baseline things. So with that being said, I know we've had a conversation where you're saying our track should still remain as the PR trainer. But is a PR trainer still required when we looked at, we've kind of fixed our pipeline and making CRC required for about every aviator that comes through? Fantastic. Do we still need to do that? Fantastic. And if we continue to look at that change of PR, do you see a change in the MTO at the higher 3-star level commands where we have W5s, W4 sitting in the protection cell running PR missions? Do you see that coming out to move those warrants back into the G3 aviation sections to work in futures and operations plans? Because based off the task of intelligence preparation, helping with those O-plan development, that is, I feel, where we need to be if we're going to remove PR from our track.
Good question. So, and just so everybody knows the background, we talked about this pretty hardcore the other day after one of the classified briefs. And anybody in the classified brief heard my direction I want to take PR. And let me cover that to answer, because that's kind of a vague question until you hear the background. The AMSO inherently, or the TAC Ops, let's write that down. The TAC Ops officer was always considered the PR officer. You're my PRO. Okay, show me what that means. Because at joint terminology and joint regulation, a PRO has specific training requirements. They do a specific job. That does not exist, okay, Army brigades and below. So my question was, why is the Army trying to develop a job, even if it's an additional duty, that doesn't really exist? And my other question is, why is that the AMSO, TAC Ops? Why is that not a function of the three? Okay, so now those are my questions, and that's where this all comes from. And now let me tell you the direction that, because I get revved up about stuff, and sometimes I'm wrong. So no one wants to completely get rid of PR. I don't even want to get rid of PR entirely. I just want to change its face. Because the Army, if I have an aircraft go down, and I have the capability as a commander to immediately recover my people with my own assets, do it. But that's a S3 planning. That's a commander's decision, S3. It makes it happen. Pilots go and get their boys. It has nothing to do with an AMSO except for the threat analysis of what's going on out there. But that's not a real PR plan. By definition, PR, is done at the joint level. And if you want to, you tell them you have an aircraft down, you just repositioned satellites, launched jets up there, you got an on-scene commander at 35,000 feet, okay? And you just enabled multiple agencies in D.C., and they're going to do something, and then you fly out and get your guy and come back. But that's PR. What your question went to is, do I think we need to PR train here even though everybody goes to CRC? W2. I have a W2 out here. One W2, W3s, okay? If I had a bunch of officers in the room, I'd ask for captains. So you guys are the closest to having gone through CRC of any of us, trust me. All right? My question is, what do you remember? Being put in a cage, getting water, hopefully it was water splashed on you, that kind of stuff. You don't remember a lot of the detailed spins requirement. You don't remember a lot of the detailed communication, the survive acronym and everything going down. I'm trying to make sure I don't go classified, so just hit me in. But you don't remember that stuff. I know I don't. So, I'm going to use me as an example. I'm going to be in one of those seats crossing the berm in the next fight, and I don't remember it. So now the requirement comes, who trains it? Do we bring SEER to our unit every year to retrain us? That's completely unfeasible and won't happen. So whose responsibility is it? Should it be the S3s? No, I don't think so. Because when it talks about those kind of survivability, when it talks about that kind of stuff, to be honest with you, obviously my planning failed, my tactics failed, my ASC didn't really support me, flying low wasn't a good idea, I'm on the ground. I still got to survive. That falls in my boat. I've got to teach you how to survive. But it shouldn't be labeled PR officer or be this huge part of a battalion AMSO's or company AMSO's job beyond, hey, sir, we haven't done a PR exercise this year. I have one right here. I've designed it. I need this many hours of academics to train them on all the stuff, and we're going to go out and we're going to throw people on the ground and they're going to E&E, and I'm going to teach them what they need to know. That's what an AMSO does. That's my vision. So the next step in that is, how about the AMSOs at the upper level tiers? Are we going to pull them back? First, let me change the lower level tiers. The upper level tiers, I don't care if it's a warrant officer. I don't care if it's an officer. All right? It's PR level courses. If you meet that joint requirement to be a PRO at 8th Army, at CENTCOM, or you name it. If you meet that requirement and they want you, go. Okay? But you have to meet that joint requirement. And that's what's amazing is people miss that ball. They don't understand the joint requirements to be a PRO. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It's just you sort of mentioned the focus of, yes, for our grade plate and stuff up the higher headquarters, we usually are getting put into the PR. But if that's not really what we want to be, because we want to be more involved with the O-plan development and how we can support,
really
make ourselves more relevant, our focus needs to be in that futures operations or O-plan.
See, and you're at the brigade, and so even at the brigade level, that PRO needs to go away. I mean, you're in Korea. That has a JPRCC that's real, and they have their own PR plan. I think Lee went
PR training, I want to remember too. I know you are. Yeah. So for the PR training, the other thing we forget too is, yes, we've received CRC school. Who else is on board? We got backseaters. they're high risk of isolation too. So we've got to provide PR training for them, because what happens when we go down, front seaters take the hit, we're knocked out or injured, and now the back seaters are having to operate the equipment and get us out of trouble. It's just as critical that they have that information. The other thing is for the Apache brethren, well, we don't have those guys on board. You still have support personnel, and they need the SEER training. I'd say Jessica Lynch would probably argue that that's probably necessary at this point. So that's something we can't forget, those other assets, and we're talking large scale. Very quickly you could go overrun. And as we've talked about before, one of the most valuable assets that we have on that aircraft is the air crews. It's not the piece of equipment itself. We need the skill sets from those air crews back into the formations, and that SEER or that PR training is what allows us to retain that capability.
Fantastic. Other questions? Oh my gosh. Get more and more hands.
It's not really a question, just more of a open-ended statement. When we decide to make the determination on how we're going to handle PR, we also have to make sure that we're not looking at a narrow straw as we're looking at how the cab operates if we're deploying a cab by itself, where we have units and detachments who deploy to other op areas where it's just the company or the battalion guy and he's setting up operations for the first time in an area where he actually does serve as a PR officer. I can give you 2 instances in the past 2 years where we've deployed to Southcom and AFRICOM, and we're the first organization there, and it was a detachment-size element. Without an identified PR officer to make those coordinations for recovery from other agencies or other foreign countries, there would have been no one able to do that. So I just say, let's not rip out the PR entirely from the AMSO, because without the AMSO identified, then we don't have that in some of those smaller organizations that are required to self-rely because they don't have this self-extraction capability.
Yeah. We're not ripping it out. You're right. And you were chosen, or whoever it was chosen to help with the PR because you are the expert. And in the absence of guidance, the AMSO is going to have the knowledge and background. So I agree with your 2 statements there, your 2 examples. Yes, we're not going to rip it out, but I want to get away from it being like, as I said, you designed my PR plan. No, you don't have a PR plan. You might have an immediate recovery plan that falls under S3. So that's all I'm doing. Good point.
I'm going to take a turn on you completely away from PR. You started out talking about communication points, especially for TAC Ops, AMSOs. We get to talk to everybody. So assuming if I'm at the cab and I have a question, would your recommendation be for me to go to, say, PMAs and ask the question, or filter my question through a survivability branch? That way there's a multiple touch point that now my brother over at 101 might have that same question. Now they know that.
So that is a great question also. And I'm glad because I totally forgot. That's what you're doing. You're prompting me on something I forgot. I got it. So on our webpage, we have a question and answer, okay? Both the NIPPER and SIPPER. If you have a question, we recommend you post it on there. We will then, if we can't answer it immediately and provide proof of why our answer is what it is, we will go to the agency, we'll go to PMASC, and we'll get the answer from them, and we'll post it on there. So anybody that has access to that website can see you ask that question, they can see the answer and the documents that support that answer. So that's why we like that. But in the absence of being able to do that, I'd rather you just go get the information any way possible. So I'm never going to tell you, don't contact the PMASC. Wouldn't that go against what Colonel Cheney said? Contact to get the information. But then here's another thing. If you get the information, maybe go ahead and post that on our webpage after the fact. Hey, this was my question. This is the answer I got from PMASC. So everybody knows. Remember that whole knowledge share. That's a great question.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. All right, well then let's give Mr. VanMeter, James, a great round of applause. And as I told you, remember, he was the guy that said, I got just a little bit to say, we'll be out of here. I got to tell you, this is passionate stuff because what you all do is about bringing young men and women home. So thank you very much for being here. Okay, so let me say just a couple of things as we close this out, okay? I've already told you, the Quad A thing, and we're about voice networking, support, and recognition. Okay, I got it. It's been a long week. But no, seriously, from Quad A's piece, if this is working for you, let us know. If you think we ought to do a little bit more classified and a little less open, we can do that. If you think there were things in the classified, and Mr. VanMeter and I talked about this, I'm not stealing any thunder out of him. If you think there's things in classified that didn't need to be in classified and would be better out here where we can share it more with industry, let us know that. You know, what we start with is kind of a template of what we did last year. So, you know, but I got to tell you, great baseball teams, great football teams, don't look at what they did last year. They look at who the enemy is today. What do we got to do, and how do we need to get together and talk? So if we've got to adjust and change, we will do that. But your comments back on the worksheets or on the surveys are critical. The other thing I will tell you is don't hold back. If you say, hey, look, this thing is so important, we need to go someplace else, we need to have our own service, fine, we will take that under consideration. If you say, absolutely, we need to be up in the front of the week, and we need to make sure that we do the unclassed first and do the classified session second, the way we'd originally envisioned it, we did unclassed to baseline people, because some people, all AMSOs aren't created equal. And so I know you think you are, but you're not. And so it's how do we baseline you, and then how do we baseline industry so that as you're walking around asking questions, everybody's kind of operating in the same place. And then how do we get in the classified sessions where you can get deep into the other things. So let us know what you think about that. All right.